Magnesium, probably the most underutilized and undervalued mineral that we all need to know more about. So today we're going to go through what is magnesium and why is it important, and then where can you find it and supplement recommendations. But firstly, what is magnesium? Magnesium is an organic mineral that your body needs to survive. It has over 300 enzymatic functions in your body. So you might ask, what does magnesium do? The better question to ask is probably, what does magnesium not do? Why is it so important for us to know more about magnesium? Well, lots of reasons. It supports energy production. Now, we usually think about food as energy, carbohydrates, proteins, fats. ATP basically captures that energy and then uses it for the processes in which your body needs. So if you think about it, ATP is really what our energy actually is. Magnesium is needed for us to create ATP. Muscles need it to contract and relax. There's lots of different mechanisms here. One of them is the potassium-sodium pump. So for your muscle to contract and relax, you need to have a certain amount of electrolytes coming in, coming out, and magnesium plays a very, very important role in that. Nerves need it to send and receive signals. So it's very important for your central nervous system. As you can imagine, your muscles obviously lift weight up and down, but it's actually your nervous system which is initiating that coming from the brain. So it's very, very important to be able to not only contract, relax muscle tissues, but also to actually get back into a rest and digest state. You know, nowadays everybody is absolutely chock-a-block busy. We can find ourselves really wired, restless leg syndrome, anxious. Magnesium plays a very, very important role in bringing us back to that rest and digest state. Magnesium repairs and makes DNA and RNA. So it's very, very important in biological roles of coding, decoding, gene expression, regulation. So for you to be a healthy individual, you need to have adequate levels of magnesium in your system. It supports your brain health through various mechanisms. We've already gone through a few. It helps with energy production, helps muscles contract and relax, helps the nervous system send signals, helps and repairs DNA. So obviously it supports our brain health. Magnesium helps you to regulate your blood pressure. So if you suffer with high blood pressure, magnesium can really help through various mechanisms, one of which is increasing nitric oxide production. Nitric oxide will basically vasodilate arterial walls, veins, blood vessels and things like that, so blood has more room to travel through. Magnesium can help improve your sleep quality dramatically, especially if you are deficient or insufficient. Same again, does it through various pathways. As we already mentioned, it helps you get back into a rest and digest state. Not last or least, we know there's 300 enzymatic functions of magnesium in the body, but I can't just have a list of 300 here. But another very important one is it encourages bowel movements. While I'm on the topic, I want to bring you through the two ways that it does that. So number one, the one that we may all know if you've ever taken milk of magnesia. What magnesium can do if you take a high enough dosage, it will draw water into your intestines, which loosens your stool. That's not why I would encourage taking magnesium. The reason why I like magnesium is because it's very important to relax muscles. Not just your skeletal muscles, like the muscles you see and the ones that you can contract and relax yourself, but your smooth muscles. For instance, your intestines, your heart, and other organs as well. So it will encourage bowel movement by relaxing the intestines. And that's very, very important and beneficial for anybody who is suffering from constipation. So why do we actually care about all this? Because you don't hear it on the news. Not everyone is ranting and raving about it. You mightn't have even heard about it. But over 50 to 70% of people in the westernized world aren't consuming the recommended daily intake of magnesium. And that's very interesting because if you look at rates of deficiency and insufficiency, that sits somewhere between 2 and 5%. So how is it that 50 to 70% of people in the westernized world aren't consuming the recommended daily intake, but only 2 to 5 people are deficient? Well, see, you store most of your magnesium in your tissues, in your bones, in your muscles, and in other cells as well. Only about 5 to 10% of your magnesium is floating around the bloodstream. When you go and get a blood test, that's what they're testing. They're testing magnesium in the bloodstream. So it doesn't necessarily mean that you are consuming and you have adequate levels of magnesium if you don't come back insufficient or deficient. So the fact of the matter is, most people aren't consuming enough magnesium. So let's go through some foods that are very high in magnesium and then some supplementation recommendations. So I'm not going to go through these foods in massive detail. I'm not going to show you the milligrams in each of them, but just note that these foods are very, very high in magnesium and should definitely be included in your diet. So the first one, great one, dark chocolate. So that's everyone loves to hear this. Dark chocolate is absolutely fantastic for your health. It tastes great. It curbs a sweet tooth. It's full of antioxidants. It's full of vitamins. It's full of minerals, and it helps release endorphins like serotonin and dopamine. So big win for dark chocolate. What else? Nuts and seeds, fantastic source of magnesium. Also vegetables like spinach, kale, and potatoes, the old Irish spud. Fruits, legumes, whole grains, dairy, and fatty fish like salmon, mackerel, or halibut. They're all great sources of magnesium. You can pause this video, make sure you get a couple of these into your diet on a daily basis. Now, supplement-wise, you may get a lot of these foods into your diet already and you may not need magnesium whatsoever. But I generally recommend magnesium supplementation for a few reasons. So there are many reasons why we may not be getting enough magnesium even though we are consuming these foods over here. 1. Micronutrient deficient soil. So with every year crops are produced and grown on the same soil, we get less and less magnesium from that produce because it's leached. It doesn't go back into the soil anymore. Now coffee, although it is fantastic for your health, actually will start to deplete magnesium levels. The reason being is because coffee is a mild diuretic, but also because it creates that fight or flight response, gets the adrenaline going. Magnesium is needed to battle that response and get you back into a rest and digest state. So coffee is a big leech when it comes to magnesium. Overall stress is a massive contributor to depleting magnesium for the same reasons. So if you're somebody that suffers from restless leg syndrome, anxiety, can't sleep, insomnia, that may be a telltale sign that you actually aren't consuming enough magnesium. Stress is also another massive contributor to depletion of magnesium levels for the same reason as coffee. It creates a fight or flight response whereby magnesium is needed to battle that response and get you back into a rest and digest state. So if you suffer from things like restless leg syndrome, high levels of chronic anxiety, insomnia, that may be a telltale sign that you aren't consuming enough magnesium. And lastly, medicine. Medicine can deplete magnesium levels, antibiotics, other things like that as well. So in 2022, with the world being as busy as it is, with everybody taking antibiotics, with the amount of coffee we're all drinking, stress levels, you can be almost certain that you need more magnesium. So supplementation is something that I often recommend to our clients. You will go into any supplement shop and you may be bombarded with different types of magnesium. So as, for instance, magnesium glycinate, magnesium chelate, magnesium citrate, and magnesium oxide. These are the 4 most common ones you will see in any of the health stores or any online shops. Magnesium glycinate. The glycinate is an amino acid which will help you release a neurotransmitter called GABA, which is really beneficial at night time. This is a magnesium supplement I take in the PM because it helps bring you back into that rest and digest state, helps you feel calm, sleepy, and relaxed. The only magnesium I would not recommend buying or consuming is magnesium oxide. It has very, very poor bioavailability. You may only uptake about 20% of the magnesium oxide you consume, so it's a bit of a waste if you ask me. Dosages. If you're on the MFC program, you would have been given a recommendation for you. As a general, I am guided by recommended daily intake by World Health Organization, but 400 milligrams per day is the recommended daily intake for an average adult. Now that's including the magnesium from all the foods you consume and supplementation. So as a recommendation, we say between 200 to 400 milligrams per day through supplementation, and the rest should be from your diet. I personally, and now this is not advice, this is me personally, I consume about 800 milligrams to 1.2 grams of magnesium every single day. And that's because I've got bloods taken every 6 months for the last couple of years, and my magnesium is always coming back low. So I need a higher dose. And that may be for several reasons, such as a lot of heavy training, a high workload, quite an angsty person as it is, quite stressed out. So potentially I just use a lot more magnesium than the average Joe So. How do I know how much magnesium is too much magnesium? What I do is I work my way up. So if I have any sort of clue or idea that my magnesium levels are very low, let's say I go on holidays for a month and forget to take magnesium, I come back, have restless leg syndrome, feeling sleepy, feeling tired, can't contract muscle tissues, I will start at 400 milligrams. Next week I'll go to 600, a couple of days later if I'm feeling good, 800, 1 gram, 1.2 grams, and eventually you shit your pants, and that's too far. Now I'm only joking, you don't shit yourself, but basically you will get looser stool, and that's when you know you basically hit the threshold of magnesium. From that point, I then half the dosage. So for me, that's when I work up to about 1.5 grams, then I back it off to 750, and then that's my dosage there on after. Now that's not advice, that's what I personally do, and you may decide you want to try something like that, but it's a very good telltale sign that you've had too much magnesium because you're just going to go to the toilet and you may have looser stool. Something that probably should have been covered at the start of this video is signs of magnesium deficiency. So weakness, inability to contract and relax muscle tissues, anxiety, not being able to sleep, cramping, overall fatigue, muscle spasms, restless leg syndrome, overall full body stiffness. These are all great telltale signs that your magnesium levels may be insufficient or deficient. Now that sounds like one of those American pharmaceutical ads. Do you have this? Do you have this? Do you have this? But it is a good way of actually saying, okay, maybe my magnesium levels are a little bit low and I could trial actually bumping my intake up a little bit. Best thing to do, see if it works, work your way up. If your stools become loose, that's the time to half the dose and then continue from there on out. I hope you found this video useful. If you have any questions or queries, please feel free to drop me a message or anybody else on the team, and we're going to get back to you straight away. Until then, see you in the next one.